So, auspicious greetings. It's good to see everyone. Before we start, let us give ourselves a moment to center ourselves and just focus on our breathing. If we have things that we haven't finished, let us put aside for now, and we can go ahead, close our eyes. Just be aware of each breath that we take. Now let us slowly take in 3 deep breaths, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in again, breathing out. Let us gently rub our palms together. Cover our palms on our eyes, top of our head, above our ears, the back of our neck. Let us gently rub our palms together. Gently massage our shoulders, arms, all the way to our fingers and wrists. So, quick recap of what we have discussed last week. We talk about the disciples, how at first, we know that Vimalakirti, he, out of compassion, he skillfully used sickness as a tool to have people from around the kingdom to come and visit him, so that he can use this opportunity talk to more people, to share the Dhamma with more people. And of course, like the Buddha knew that Vimalakirti was thinking about him, and also like the whole Sangha. So the Buddha thought about asking someone that can represent him to go and see Vimalakirti. And of course, started from the 10 great disciples that we look at each, a few of them, that how they refuse or turn down the Buddha's request to go and visit Vimalakirti because of past incidents, like where Vimalakirti kind of like pointed out the different practices that goes beyond duality, that goes beyond the concept of the worldly understanding of the Dharma. And of course, it is with these stories, it is not for us to think that, oh, the disciples of the Buddha is not well practiced as just like the Vimalakirti, but through understanding on the stories, it is a reminder for ourselves that from the great disciples, like even though most of them has realized our hardship, like liberated from the cycle of birth and death, but then it is a reminder for ourselves that even one has achieved a certain level of practices, we still have to be humble, reminding ourselves the importance of understanding the Dharma, the importance of really practicing what we learn. Okay, not just learning through understanding, but also like try to practice it in our daily life, try to reflect upon what we say, what we understand, reflect it upon what we do, what we say, and what we think in our mind. Okay, so that is a recap of what we have discussed last week on the two chapters, chapter 2 and 3. And of course that we didn't really go into all the details just because there's a little bit too much to cover. But I shared a few key points, and hopefully that it will be our daily reminders, the reflections. The same goes to what we're going to talk about today is of course the teachings focusing on non-duality, but here we want to go into a little bit in details in terms of how Vimalakirti, even though he shared that he's physically sick, but he actually has gone beyond sickness. Okay, so that covers between chapter 4 is the continuation of the Bodhisattva that turned down the request of the Buddha about going to visit Vimalakirti. And chapter 5 is focusing on how everyone get ready to go and see Vimalakirti. So we're going to look at chapter 4. I kind of like pick two bodhisattvas to quickly share like what had happened. But mainly the reluctance of bodhisattvas. The same goes to the disciples that we have look at on chapter 3. Chapter 4 is talking about a few bodhisattvas that are reluctant to visit Vimalakirti because they were challenged before in terms of the practice of the Dharma. But then again, the reluctance of the bodhisattvas reflects that we sometimes when we practice, because of the worldly conditions that we are in, the way that we understand the teachings, the way that we practice is still within the practice of duality. Well, there's still distinction of good and bad, the distinction about how much that I've practiced, how many hours, how many days, how far have I progressed. The measurement itself, the time itself, the space itself is still within the idea or the focus, or not the focus, but the idea of duality. Okay, and of course, when Vimalakirti pinpoints a few key aspects of the practices, is trying to help us see our blind spot when it comes to our practice, help us see how to be mindful, not to attach to the duality concept of what we have when it comes to practice. Okay, so and when it comes to Vimalakirti, of course, chapter 5 is when Manjushri eventually, wanted to accept the Buddha's request to go and see Vimalakirti, and how everyone just followed suit to go and see Vimalakirti. And that will be also very interesting happenings when they are there. So today, this is basically what we are going to look at, chapter 4 and 5. Okay, so when it comes to one of the bodhisattvas that we know of is Maitreya. We know that Maitreya Bodhisattva is also considered, not considered, but the Buddha has mentioned, Shakyamuni Buddha said that the future Buddha, the next Buddha, will be Maitreya Bodhisattvas. And we also know that Shakyamuni Buddha and Maitreya Bodhisattva, they are actually practicing together when they are in Tushita heaven. And because of conditions where Shakyamuni Buddha praises the Buddha during that time, and that is the reason why Shakyamuni Buddha realized enlightenment first before Maitreya. So when Shakyamuni Buddha realized full enlightenment, he mentioned before, saying that Maitreya will realize enlightenment in the coming days, the years, the kalpas soon. The next Buddha will be Maitreya Buddha. So that is the occasion when Maitreya Bodhisattva, when he was sharing the teachings to the king of Tushita heaven and his followers on the practice that required to attain the state of non-regression. So there was also a question about what is non-regression. It's mainly referring to bodhisattvas who vows and already practices bodhisattva's practice, and one has reached that state of practices, they won't go back. They won't they have already progressed until that state where they won't be going back to the mundane, or like they have worked so hard in the practice, they won't just go back, become bad or not so good at it. So this is what it mentioned about the non-regression. So when one is already in that level of bodhisattva's realization, one will continue to move forward instead of like going backwards. Okay, so this is what it mentioned about non-regression. So during that time, Maitreya Bodhisattva was sharing these teachings, what is required when it comes to the different stages of Bodhisattva's practices. And then here comes Vimalakirti, and then start to challenge Maitreya regarding how the Buddha prophesies that just one more birth, then Maitreya Bodhisattvas will realize Anuttara Sambodhi, meaning that will realize enlightenment or full enlightenment and become the Buddha. Okay, and then Vimalakirti started to ask, now what birth does this prophecy applies to? Okay, Vimalakirti asked Maitreya, does it apply to your past birth, or does it apply to your future birth, or does it apply to your present birth? Okay, if it is in the past is already the past. If it is a future birth, a future has yet to come. How can you know? And if it is the present birth, there's no permanence. Okay, if it's present, there won't be present, because the moment that we say present, the present and the noun will already be in the past. Okay, so the question that Vimalakirti was keep on debating or challenging Maitreya. So were you, referring to Maitreya, given this prophecy because of some birth that pertains to Tathagata or suchness or Buddhahood? Or were you given this prophecy because of some extinction that you have practiced? Okay. If you were given to this prophecy because of some birth that pertains to the Buddhahood, then you should know that the Buddhahood itself, or suchness itself, or Tathagata itself, there's no birth. So if we were given this prophecy because of some extinction that pertains to suchness or Tathagata, you know that there's no extinction. Okay? There's no, so what Vimalakirti is trying to challenge Maitreya Bodhisattva is that now we know that Shakyamuni Buddha said that you'll be the next Buddha. So is it referring to does the prophecy applies to a past birth or the future or the present? But when it comes to past, future, and present, it is still within the idea of time. Okay, if it is referring to you as someone that has realized full enlightenment, then we know that a person who is fully enlightened or the Buddha is beyond the idea of space. Okay, it's beyond the idea of time. It doesn't pertain to something or some place, because if we were to look at it from the time frame, the time itself is relative. The time itself is duality. There's a distinction of the past, future, and the present. And when it comes to the space itself, a person who has practiced and realized full enlightenment, one has already gone beyond this physical birth, and gone beyond this space of human. Okay, so even there's no extinction or there's no such thing as suchness in a way, because there's no physical form. When it comes to physical form, it still pertains to something that is constantly changing. If it is something that is constantly changing, there's no suchness. It is not Tathagata, it's not the Buddha. Okay, so when, of course, this is a few points that Vimalakirti would like to highlight to bring light to everyone that were present in the Tushita heaven, to really understand what the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, has mentioned, and is trying to let Maitreya Bodhisattvas also know that the prophecy itself is beyond how we look at it, is beyond how we look at it in terms of the time, in terms of the space. Space referring to whether it's human form or enlightened ones, or even in different realms, like even in Tushita heaven, it's still within a certain space, the realm that one is in. Okay, so here, if Maitreya is able to attain Anuttara Buddhi, then all living beings should likewise be able to attain it, because all living beings in truth bear the marks of Bodhi. So does it brings back our memory of when the Buddha realized enlightenment? What did the Buddha say? The Buddha looked around and then mentioned that every one of us has the Buddha nature. Every one of us has the potential to realize full enlightenment. It is just because of the three poisons, greed, hatred, and ignorance, that we haven't seen the truth. We haven't realized the truth. Okay, so whether it is Maitreya Bodhisattvas that will be the future Buddha, not only that, but all living beings, all sentient beings, including all of us, we all have the Buddhahood. We all have the Buddha nature within ourselves. So it's waiting for us to discover. As long as we put in effort in our practice, step by step, okay, we'll be able to see the Buddha nature within ourselves. So this is what Vimalakirti is trying to remind everyone of what the Buddha said about the Buddha nature, about how all of us have the potential of realizing full enlightenment, and just like the Buddha. Okay, and then another Bodhisattvas that I would like to kind of like also mention is the name Shining Adornment, or Prabhayuha. Okay, so it's one of the Bodhisattvas that is practicing Bodhisattva's path. Okay, so there was also an occasion where this Bodhisattva was in a place, and then he saw Vimalakirti coming by and asked Vimalakirti, where do you come from? Okay. And then Vimalakirti said that I come from the seat of enlightenment. Okay, wow. And then Prabhupada asked, so what is meant by the seat of enlightenment? Okay. So Vimalakirti said that it is a seat of positive thought because it is without artificiality. Okay, positive thought, meaning that it is something out of genuine thought, a wholesome thought, okay, and without anything that is artificial, without anything that is fake, without anything that is made out of within our mind, okay. And then Vimalakirti continue, okay, the seed of enlightenment is also the seed of effort, okay, because it releases energetic activities, okay. So the seat of enlightenment is not referring to a seat itself, but it is referring to the practices that we practice no matter where we go, okay. So it's just like referring to when people ask, where is the temple? Where is the place of practice? And of course, we were usually referring to we practice in this Buddhist temple. We practice in with this tradition. We practice this school of thought, and so on and so forth. Okay, and sometimes when we, after, like for example, weekends, we come for classes, we come for Sunday services, and after the services, when we go back home, we go back to our usual way of doing things, have forgotten about what is compassion, has forgotten about Bodhisattva's vow, have forgotten about our practices that we learn from the temple. Okay, so with this story, with this encounter, what Vimalakirti is trying to remind the Bodhisattvas is that the seed of enlightenment is not reframed within a certain space. What we learn from our teacher, what we learn from one class or one practice, is for us to extend, is for us to remind ourselves in everything that we do, every day, every moment. So the seed of enlightenment, it can be the seed of effort. It is the seed of high resolve, where we continue to put in effort, constantly having insight, constantly having contemplation. And the seed of great spirit of enlightenment, it is like focusing on everything and not neglecting anything in our life. And there's also the seed of enlightenment as the seed of generosity, constantly practicing the Bodhisattva's path. So no matter who we come across, no matter what situation that we are in, we constantly remind ourselves of the Bodhisattva's practices and the Bodhisattva's vows that we have uphold. From the temple, we learn from this teacher, we learn from this book, we learn from the Buddha's teachings. In every practices, okay, it is not reframed to one place, one class, but we try to extend it. And that's what Verbal Master Xing Yun propagated and practiced throughout his whole life, what we call humanistic Buddhism. So we try to relate to our daily life, all the practices, no matter what teachings the Buddha shared with us, what we learn, what we remember, we have to reflect and also contemplate in every situation that we're in every encounters in our everyday life. Okay, so because of that, eventually these Bodhisattvas, together with the 500 gods and men, they all conceive, like in their mind, the spirit of enlightenment, and then understand what is really the seed of enlightenment, what is really about the practice of Buddha's teachings. Okay, so of course there are also other Bodhisattvas that I won't be able to go into it now. I would like to go straight to chapter 5, where eventually the Buddha asked all the disciples, asked all the bodhisattvas that he thought of, and now eventually the Buddha said that, okay, let me ask Manjushri Bodhisattva. We know that Manjushri Bodhisattva is known of great wisdom. Okay, so, and of course, when the Buddha asked Manjushri, Manjushri Bodhisattva also expressed his reluctance and challenges in debating with Vimalakirti, but yet he's willing to go as asked by the Buddha. So we might be thinking, why Manjushri, the Bodhisattva known of great wisdom, still express his being challenged? It feels like being challenged. It's very challenging when if he were to come across with Vimalakirti. It is because he would like to honor and also respect all the bodhisattvas, all the disciples before him, where they express their reluctance is because they have been challenged before. So if Manjushri Bodhisattva would just say, okay, I can go. So that will highlight, or that will bring out that how Manjushri is like being so outstanding, being so way better than other bodhisattvas. But among bodhisattvas, among the great disciples of the Buddha, in some ways that they gone beyond the idea of like feeling distinct. There's no ego. There's no the idea of like distinction or feeling good about oneself. Among bodhisattvas is a constant practice of humbleness, and also always praises one and another, no matter how one's practice, always saying all the good words. Okay, so with this starting conversation reply from Manjushri, where he expressed that is the challenges in debating or encountering with Vimalakirti, is to show that he's the same as other bodhisattva, but he is willing to go. Okay, so imagine that among the disciples, all the bodhisattvas, and we know that the one who is known of great wisdom is going to go and visit Vimalakirti. Imagine like that moment, how there are people, thousands, 8,000 of bodhisattvas, 500 disciples, and also the Sakras, Brahmins, Lokapalas, and many hundred thousands of gods and goddesses. All of them say that I want to go with Manjushri Bodhisattva to visit Vimalakirti. Okay, so imagine, like, I tried to find this photo here where the center figure is Manjushri Bodhisattva together with endless Bodhisattvas, disciples that all followed him to go and see Manjushri, Vimalakirti. Okay, so when Vimalakirti accept this request to go and see Vimalakirti, that everyone followed Manjushri. Okay, and of course, when Manjushri went to Vimalakirti's place, he realized that everything is empty except Vimalakirti and the bed. And I just go straight to the key when we discuss about sickness here, okay, which is the main objective of why Manjushri visited Vimalakirti, okay, is to show care and concern and ask about Vimalakirti's sickness. So Manjushri said the Buddha countless times has made inquiries concerning you. What is the cause of this illness? Okay, has it been with you long? How can it be cured? Okay, so it's like going to see a patient and asking and caring. I was being asked by the Buddha to come and see you So in terms of sickness, what is the cause, and how long do you feel sick already? And do you know how to cure it? And Vimalakirti replied, this illness of mine is born of ignorance and the feelings of attachment. And because all living beings are sick, therefore I am sick. If all living beings are relieved from sickness, then my sickness will be mended. Okay, so looking at this sentence here, we can remind ourselves that last week when I shared how every one of us show our compassion in so many different ways. Okay, so for Vimalakirti, as the practicing bodhisattvas, show sickness as in a way to show great compassion. So the sickness arises from the great compassion that Vimalakirti has towards everyone. It is just like in a family, when a child is sick, how will both parents feel? If a child is having high fever, the same goes to the parents. They become sick. They feel sick because their loved one, the baby, is not feeling well. Okay, so both parents become sick because of their son, because of their child, because of their daughter. So the parents will suffer as long as the child, okay, doesn't recover from the sickness. So the moment that the child recovers from sickness, the same goes to the parents. They will no longer suffer. They will feel relief. Okay, the same goes to Vimalakirti. What he's trying to share, what he wants to bring out is the sickness that Vimalakirti has is born of ignorance and feelings of attachments that all living beings has. It is because everyone still being poisoned by the three poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance. So that's why Bodhisattva still feel that one is also experience this kind of sickness is because it's just like the relationship between a child and the parents, the relationship between the living beings and the Bodhisattvas, they are closely connected. So this is how we know how compassionate a Bodhisattva is. It's just like the compassion that parents, the love that the parents have towards child. Okay. So when it comes to illnesses, okay, we know that our physical body comprises of four great elements. Okay, we have the earth element, and then the water element, the fire element, the wind element. The four great elements is part of our physical body. Okay, so and then when it comes to the imbalance of one of the great elements, okay, we feel discomfort physically. Like for example, here in San Diego, the past few days, we had cloudy day. There's no sun. It was cloudy, gloomy, cold, cold in terms of for us. But to some people, they might appreciate it. But to some of us who feel cold, if we don't put on enough clothing, so the fire element within our physical body might be affected. So we might sneeze, we might blow up mucus, and some of us might catch a cold because of the sudden change of the weather. So for us to catch a cold is just like the imbalance between the elements of the fire within ourselves and the environment. Okay, so this is something physical. Okay, but when it comes to our mind, okay, the question of greed and ignorance, when it comes to greed, of course, what we greed for, it might affect our physical body. Like for example, when it comes to food, some of us likes to eat cheesy food with all the different cheese, like pizza, pasta, spaghetti, with all the cheesy toppings. And when a person is still young, you won't be able to feel the instant effect towards the physical body. But because of the greed that we have, oh wow, this is my favorite food, I want to have more and more and more. So that will affect one's physical body. One might end up obese, or even like having physical changes, not only heavy weight, diabetes, for those who greed for sweet food, dessert. And of course, if some of it comes to hatred, some of us pick and choose the food that we like. When it comes to bitter melon, oh, it's so bitter, I don't want to eat it. But if we go beyond the idea or the distinction of like I don't like or dislike, or like having greed or hatred towards certain things, we look at it beyond like and dislike. It's one way for us to go beyond the greed and hatred. But of course, throughout the whole process, we might end up eating or taking the things that we like and pushing away the things that we don't like, including exercise. Some of us don't like exercise. So imagine like when we were young, we won't feel anything, but after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it will affect us physically. And not to say our mind, how our emotions, the worries that we have, the stress that we have, how our mind influences our physical body as well as the four great elements. The body and the mind, they are interconnected in so many ways. Okay, so I found this picture image that I think that is very interesting, that I wish people knew that my mental health is so physical too. Sometimes when we are mentally down, depressed, or we feel sad, feeling fatigue in our mind, there's no energy, that will affect our physical condition. It's just like when we see someone, okay, we might be able to tell if a person is in a happy mood, in feeling very joyful, or a person feeling down, a person feeling sad. We will be able to tell by just looking at the appearance of a person. Okay, so sometimes like stress or mental pressure that we give ourselves, it might give us a fatigue, exhaustion, headaches, and sometimes like we grind our teeth at night, and that will affect, is because of the stress that we might have when we sleep. We're not really sleeping, we grind our teeth, and then when we wake up, we having painful jaw. That will affect the headache. It will affect our brain. And there's so many things, like when we're nervous, when we need to give a presentation to so many people. Okay, so we might have butterfly in our stomach that will upset our tummy, having cramps, and so on and so forth. Okay, even like restless legs or cramps, or shoulder feeling so tense, and then even difficulties in breathing. So in many ways, the mental health problems can cause physical symptoms, whether it's headache, fatigue, digestive issues, insomnia, we cannot sleep at night. And that will eventually lead to having higher risk of heart disease, or stroke, type 2 diabetes, and even weaken our immune system. Okay, so everything are interconnected. Okay, and when it comes to sickness, it could be from the physical condition. It could be the phenomena, like our external factors. It could also be the mental influence. Okay, so there's the reason why, like the conversation between Manjushri and Vimalakirti continues. Okay, trying to highlight, bring out the proactive way of living, life, living this life. Okay. And then Manjushri Bodhisattvas eventually asked this question, saying that how should a Bodhisattva go about comforting and instructing another Bodhisattva who is ill? Okay. So how can we, when we want to see a patient, when we want to see someone who is not feeling well, okay, it is very important for us to ask the right question. It is very important for us to know how to comfort others who is not feeling well. Okay, we won't be, when we go to visit someone who is not feeling well, we won't be saying that, oh yeah, it's because of you eat too much of sweet, that's why you have diabetes, and then because of diabetes, now you have like sore feet, that you won't have the feet for long, eventually you won't recover, the soreness will become bigger and bigger and become rotten and so on and so forth. That is not the way of comforting and someone who is not feeling well. Okay, so Vimalakirti replied Manjushri Bodhisattva, saying that tell the Bodhisattva or tell someone who is not feeling well about the impermanence of the body. And it is not something wrong with the physical body. It is just the changes of our physical body. Okay, we shouldn't tell a bodhisattva or someone who's not feeling well to turn away from this physical body, to despise this physical body. Okay, we should tell the person the suffering of the body and not to talk about how someone might be stuck with this suffering forever. Okay, tell him that the body is without ego, and there's not something that is permanent. Okay, and when we not feeling well, it is not asking the question of why me. Put aside the ego, put aside the I. Okay, and then knowing that when we're not feeling well, it's as the body is impermanent. We shouldn't turn away by embracing the changes physically. Okay, and when it comes to knowing the pain, the discomfort of the body, it's not for us to encourage a person to just ignore the doctors and find solace in liberation. It's not that telling a person saying that, oh, this is because of your bad karma that you have done in the past, so that's why you suffer in this way. It is not that turning away from the reality of experiencing the physical changes. Okay, so and through sickness, it is also one of the opportunity for us to know that the body is non-self. The body is beyond our control in some ways. Okay, so when we experience non-self, when a person is experiencing non-self, is for us to really know and understand and embrace the changes physically. Like for example, when a person who used to be able to drive, to walk, to eat, and all of a sudden that moment that a person experienced stroke, and then half the body couldn't move. That person wants to stand up, but the mind wants to stand up, but physically cannot. Okay, so this is what we mentioned about selfless, without ego, without the self that we can 100% control physically. Okay, so when a person is not feeling well, so we have to share from the perspective of comforting and making a person feeling happy and embracing and accepting what one is experiencing. Okay, so now that this illnesses, okay, we know that it is non-self. Okay, and sometimes when we experience sickness, most of the time that we will ask, why me? Why does it happen to me? I've done so much wholesomeness and goodness. Why do I still have this illness? Okay. So the first thing is to fully understand the illnesses that we experience is non-self. The physical body itself is non-self. And it could be because of deluded thoughts, because of greed, because of hatred, and because of the past experiences that we didn't really fully understand and know and be aware of what we do. Okay. So, and for us to really understand the body has no I and no ego, the illnesses, okay, sometimes it's because of attachment to certain things, the things that we like, the things that we dislike. So when we understand the origin of illness, okay, only then we can go beyond the idea of I that is suffering. Okay, it is applying the Noble Eightfold Path that we get to know the suffering, what is suffering, okay, identifying the suffering and identifying the causes that give rise to suffering. And only then we know a state of mind, a state where there's beyond the physical suffering and physical mental suffering, which is nirvana. And we find ways, the Fourth Noble Truth, the different ways of righteousness to practice. Okay, so when we understand that, only then we can go beyond thinking about something external and internal. How can we go beyond and not thinking about something external and internal? Is to treat everything as equal, treating everything as it is. When whether it's feeling sick or healthy, it's just part of the phenomena of the physical changes. And when we can have insight on both of this, then the idea of like healthy or sickness is beyond the thought of distinction. We understand fully that both states is just part of the dependent originations. So that's why here, both I and nirvana are all empty. Empty meaning that the idea of enlightened or the idea of nirvana, the idea of without sickness, okay, the way that we understand it, the concept that we understand it, is also part of dependent origination. It's merely the names, it's merely the language, the words that the Buddha put in so that we can understand what is nirvana, so that we can understand what is suffering. Only then we can understand how the changes physically and mentally arises, happened is because of the causes and conditions. So everything that the discussion, the dialogue between Vimalakirti and Manjushri in terms of sickness, it goes all the way back to what the Buddha mentioned about dependent origination. It's for us to really understand what are the causes and conditions behind everything that we see, that we experience. So to conclude, between what we have learned on chapter 4 and 5, is that true wisdom involves transcending attachments to words, attachments to language, attachment to the level of understanding, even to the Dharma itself. Okay. And when we learn about the Dharma, as like this morning, I came across a young adult who was just skateboarding in front of the temple. And then he rang the bell and asked me about the Diamond Sutra, asking me about emptiness. I mentioned about the examples about a chair. Okay, so what is a chair? Is the cushion a chair? Is it the mental frame that has 4 legs? Is a chair? What is a chair? A chair is something that is put together with the right causes and conditions where we can sit on it. It's called a chair. Okay, but imagine there's no cushion, only this metal steel frame of a chair without the cushion. Do we still call a chair? Okay, it is not. Okay, so when we understand that a chair is because of the right causes and conditions, we know that it is a chair. Okay, the same goes to the Dharma. Okay, and then because when we understand what it is part of the reality. It's no longer what we so-called the Dharma. Okay, and it's just like for him, when I shared with the young adult, saying that the skateboard that you have, when you use a skateboard to skateboard all the way to your workplace, when you're at your workplace, will you hold on to your skateboard everywhere that you work? And then he said, no, of course, I'll put aside the skateboard. Okay, so the same goes to the Dharma. Whatever teachings and realization that the Buddha shared with us is for us to really see the truth of life. Once we know and practice what we know, the idea of Dharma, the idea of compassion and kindness or loving kindness or whatever teachings that the Buddha shared with us is already within the wisdom that ones have. So that's why even the Dharma itself, the idea, the concept of Dharma, we have to go beyond. So Bodhisattvas are not only beings of great compassion, but also be able to understand what is emptiness, what is causes and conditions of all phenomena. Okay, so when we practice compassion or loving kindness, or when we are practicing the Dharma every day, only then we can practice without clinging to the notion of self or others. Okay, so this is what I would like to share with everyone. And then for next week, we're going to look into chapter 6 and 7, how we look into the inconceivable liberation that transcends the conceptual thinking. And of course, chapter 7 is also very interesting, where we talk about gender as illusory. And then and the next Friday, we're going to have Thank Buddha's Friday. Is a program where we have both online as well as in person, with a special topic on inner peace, healing the mind through Buddhist teachings. It will be given by Verbal Zhixing from Shilai Temple. So she will be here in person in San Diego, but then it will also be online. So for those of you who are not here in San Diego, you can also join Verbal Zhixing next Friday. But before that, we'll have our usual class on next Wednesday. Okay, so does anyone have anything that you would like to share or comments? I know that sometimes by just reading the words, the sutra itself, we kind of like, got stuck. Yeah, but when we read the Vimalakirti Sutra, always remind ourselves of the core teachings of the Buddha, which is dependent origination, which is emptiness, which is non-self. Most of the time is, no matter how Vimalakirti challenges bodhisattvas or any of the disciples that we're going to see along the chapters, always remember the core teachings of the Buddha. Then we will be able to understand what Vimalakirti is trying to point out. Okay? And anyone has anything to share, comments, and if you have a questions, I'll try my best to answer. I'm not sure if I can 100% answer the profound questions that you have, but it's more like we learn together. And that's why I hope that it will be a discussion in a way than having a class. Anyone? Wow, it's a total silence that everyone has gone beyond duality, yeah. Okay, so if not, I'm going to share back to my slides. Okay, so let us conclude today's sharing with dedication and merit. Let's all join our poems. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May Chan, Pure Land, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. So I hope that everyone have a safe and pleasant week. And I hope to see everyone again next week. And we will have the recording uploaded in the Google Classroom, and I usually also share via email. So, and if you have any questions or any comments, anything to share, feel free to share it in the Google Classrooms, or you can just share with me via email. Okay, so thank you again for joining me. Have a good evening or just auspicious week. Okay.